The National Investor's motto is, you can get information anywhere, but here you get knowledge. And for well over 40 years now, Chris Temple has imparted that knowledge, an unparalleled, understandable, and useful take on the big picture of the markets and of our world. He has been out in front of what you see on the news every day on many themes. More, Chris has taken this macro knowledge and his unique analytical abilities to uncover unique investment opportunities. Often, he has guided his members to big winners in resources, biotech stocks, and more. His talents and connections often getting him into ground floor opportunities before they are discovered. Without further ado, here is Chris with today's topic.
Welcome back, everybody. Chris Temple here, of course, with you. And we want to give you a quick update in this video on Seabridge Gold, one of my longest tenured recommendations over the years. Seabridge is listed on the Toronto Stock Exchange under SEA. It's listed on New York under SA. I encourage you to get better acquainted with the company if you aren't already. It is one of the companies, as I've said many a time, that should be right at the top of the list of your core holdings if you are long-term bullish on gold. And for that matter, these days, copper as well. They've got one of the biggest gold and copper shovel-ready projects pretty much on the planet in the KSM project up in British Columbia. But we're not going to talk about KSM today. The company several days ago put out an update on Iskut, which is a project they bought back in 2016. Rudi will retell the story real quick. When I bring him on, Rudi Fronk, of course, is who I refer to, who is a co-founder and the chairman and CEO of Seabridge. And Iskut is a project that they have long believed could be a copycat of KSM, which has built a world-class store of gold and copper reserves, as well as even more gold and copper resources, as you see here in total, as far as the company is concerned, on several different parts of that project, and they believe that they're sitting on top of another cluster of potentially economic porphyries to the west in Iskut, in this project that they bought. Now, before I get into any more detail and bring Rudi on, of course, he and or myself might be making what could be construed as forward-looking statements, so of course, be mindful of that. But the news that came out was several days ago, and I'll give you a couple of the snippets here on the screen, is remarkable in a few respects. First of all, the multi-hundreds of meter length of drill core, which has the kind of grades that you see here, which in the proper setting and with the geology and everything were to be proven to be conducive, could be very economic. A lot of stuff is mined at lower grades than that the world over, so be mindful of that. This is still pretty early days. You know, they've got several other targets that they're looking at. They've got other drill holes from the Snip North area that are going to be coming out in the coming few months, I believe it is. But here again, you've got an exploration project, very tantalizing, very promising. A lot of that promise seems to be being met by these numbers that have come out. And again, we need more. It's early. This isn't a mine yet by any stretch of the imagination. But everything is going in the right direction. And it's an exciting time for Seabridge, and including, of course, besides a couple of headaches with that project that are minor and will pass in the recent past, as we've talked about before, they're moving along and are continuing to court potential suitors, potential investors in KSM, which again is one of the leading development stage projects on the entire planet. Now, when I bring him on, Rudi's not going to stay long. He and I are both getting ready to travel as we're recording this. He's going to give you the highlights and some thoughts about Iskut. But for further research, if you've not already done it, of course, you should visit Seabridge's website, follow them on social media, etc. Get better acquainted with the company and its several projects. And as I've said many times, any one of its projects could be the flagship for a smaller company or a less seasoned company. So you've got a lot of really good stuff all in one place here. And also for more homework and research, it wasn't that many weeks back that I did an update around mid-year with Rudi. We talked as much about the gold market and its dynamics as we did Seabridge, but you'll get a lot of good stuff on both. So I encourage you to watch that if you haven't already. And also the company a while back did a specific video presentation and history of Iskut itself, which I've not shared with you before. Maybe if you found it on your own, that's good. You're one step ahead of me, but I'm going to have that link as well in the notes to this video. And here's my old friend Rudi Fronk once again. Rudi, I'm glad that we can catch up with one another on our respective flies, so to speak, this week.
Chris, great to see you again. Happy to engage.
Yeah, you're about ready to head up to BC, and you're going to visit the Iskut Project, where you guys just put out that news I alluded to before you came on, and I think that by far and away is your biggest company news in quite some time.
Yeah, I think so. So, Iskut has been kind of people wondering what are we going to do with that. We bought this project in 2016 after gold bottomed out in 2015. And I'll say we bought it very, very cheap. I think we issued about 600,000 shares to buy a company that had 100% of Iskut. And we bought it with the belief that Iskut could be another KSM. There already was a small deposit there called Bronson Slope that we've now expanded. We're now over 5 million ounces at Bronson Slope. But the real prize we saw at Iskut was big gold copper porphyry deposits. At KSM, we sit in the middle of a cluster of 5 deposits, which are huge. 4 of the 5 deposits are bigger than 2 billion tons. And as we started to work at Iskut then and advanced our understanding over the last several years, we continued to try and vector into that first big porphyry deposit. And now I think it's safe to say that we have one.
Well, that's great news. And I know that you said for a while, including in our most recent conversation, once again, that I'm including the link to among a couple other links with the notes on this video. You've always believed that you've got one or more lookalikes, so to speak, of KSM.
Yeah, and that's important because, as you know, Chris, one of our guiding principles has always been to offset equity dilution with ounces, growing ounces on a per share basis. It's what's led to the share price performance we've had over
Yeah.
more than a quarter of a century. And, we issued a bunch of shares earlier this year to continue funding KSM. We now need to offset that dilution with ounces. And I think we have that box just about checked. We're not allowed to go out and calculate resources until all the work is done, and it's 43101 qualified. But one of the analysts that covers Seabridge took the information from our news release and did a calculation that based on the volumes we now know in terms of what we have our arms around, that there's upwards of 2 billion tons of potential resources there, hosting 20 million ounces of gold and over 5 billion pounds of copper. So we're on our way.
Yeah, and you're going to start putting some more serious numbers to that. I think the goal is early in 2026 when you come out with an official initial resource estimate for Snip North.
Yeah, so as data comes in from this year's drilling, we continuously update our geologic model in terms of volumes and shapes. But then by the end of this year, we'll be able to take those shapes and the work that we've done and hand it over to a qualified person that'll then be able to come up with a 43101 estimate that we expect to put out during Q1 of 2026.
Well, I can understand why some people who are smarter than me on these calculations can take the numbers that you put out, and I'll put them up here again, and those 3 holes from Snip North that you announced, because those are some wide intercepts, several hundred meters, and at initial grades, which correct me if I'm wrong, Rudi, those are higher grades than what the reserve grade is, or they're pretty darn close, at least to KSM, aren't they?
Yeah, in terms of gold and copper, and you do the combination looking at the
Yeah,
per ton value. Yeah, these are spot on with what we have at KSM in terms of reserve grades. And
yeah,
again, remember, this is early stages yet, so a lot's going to change as time
sure.
goes on. Hope we find a lot more and we find a number of these deposits. Because in this region in British Columbia, like we see at KSM, clusters of deposits seem to be there. And we've now found really the first one.
Yeah, no, you're in big porphyry country. So you're about ready. I'm leaving Casper as we're recording this on Thursday morning. I've been at the U220, U2025, correct? I'm sorry, conference here. Great conference put on by the Wyoming section of the SME, sold out crowd. Just a lot of stuff going on in the uranium industry, which is my other big story, of course, in the recent past, besides gold. And you're at the top of the list as far as gold. So you're getting ready to head when we get done here up to BC, and you're going to visit Iskut first.
I'm going to spend about a week up north on our projects. I'll visit Iskut North. I've got my head of exploration who'll be there with me, Bill Threlkeld,
Yep.
and the team that's doing the work. I want to put my boots on the ground and kind of look at the core. And it's always fun to go into a core shack and talk to your geologists that are
Oh, yeah.
logging the core and see the enthusiasm or lack of enthusiasm sometimes. And hopefully it'll be enthusiasm. And then I'll head down to KSM from there and spend the next 5 or 6 days then at KSM, getting ready and accommodating some site visits that we have planned for next week.
Good. Well, great, exciting stuff. I'm sure it's going to be a great and fun and fulfilling trip now that you've got this big set of numbers out from those drill holes. You've got other news to come out too, as far as additional assays, Rudi?
Yeah, I mean, this was just the first 3 holes.
Right.
I think the program there, what we plan to drill at Snip North now, I think was originally budgeted at 12,000 meters. I think it's safe to say we'll probably go through that and higher.
Yeah.
But as the results come in, we'll continue to update the market with those results, and then also looking at what's yet to come.
Great stuff. Well, of course, we'll update people too when those come out. So, Rudi, thanks for taking a few minutes today. We wanted to let folks know about this news that just came out last week, and onward and upward.
Chris, my pleasure, and safe travels yourself, and we'll talk again soon.
All right, take care.
For much more of the National Investor's cutting-edge content and actionable investment opportunities, make sure to subscribe to Chris's free content at nationalinvestor.com. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel too. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.